Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got the Smith Wesson M&P 380EZ, part of their M2.0 line. Even though there really wasn't a 1.0 version of this gun, it came out initially as the 2.0. But this is one of their newest in the M&P line. It is chambered in 380 as the name would imply, and the EZ part of it really does factor into the design intent of this gun and the target audience. So I'll start off by picking it up, and of course I'll verify that it is clear. And it holds 8+1. It's a single stack. It's designed to be very light. It only weighs 18.5 ounces, so it's really very light gun. It's also designed to have an extremely easy to rack slide, and it's even got these little wings here. Along with the serrations, you got these little wings. It takes no effort at all to rack the slide. So what you're targeting is the audience that is very underrepresented in the concealed carry market, and that's those that don't have super strong hands. So if you don't have very strong hands, you may have a hard time racking many of the other concealed carry guns that are out there, but this one you're going to have no trouble with. Some of the basic stats of it: it's 6.7 inches long, it's 4.8 inches tall, coming down to the base of this little protrusion, and it's 1.13 inches thick. So it's actually not the smallest of the 380s out there. There's quite a few 380s out there that are smaller. So you are trading off size for some of the EZ features, and that is one of the trade-offs that you'll have to make. The magazines have a unique feature. Before I push this out of the way, number one, they have an orange follower, so it makes it easy to see when you're empty. But you see this little protrusion, and you commonly see this on 22 magazines. They have that on this magazine, and the intent is you can catch it with your finger or your thumb to pull the follower down as you load the rounds, which again, if you've got weaker hands, that can help you quite a bit in doing that. Now this is only on one side. The one on the other side is very, very flush. You can see it would be hard to get a hold of it. So it's really only going to work easily with one hand. From a safety perspective, this has quite a few safety features. Number one, it does have this grip safety, and I know these are something that you either love them or hate them. 1911s have these, the Springfield XDM series has these, and even the XDS series has them. This one works well. When I get a firing grip on the gun, it fully disengages. Throughout the time we've been firing this weapon, we had no trouble whatsoever with the gun failing to go off when it should have because of this. Actually, we had no trouble at all. The gun just worked. It also has internal drop safeties, so that it has all the same safety features that you've come accustomed to on many of your other guns. So it is a drop safe weapon. It is safe to carry. It has actually fairly nice sights. It's got a nice bright 3-dot set of sights, and they're really easy to see. So the sights are actually quite good. The front one, there's a screw underneath on it that holds it in place, and the rear one is dovetailed, but it's also kind of strange. It's got a little protrusion here, and that's actually the head of a screw, actually the head of a captive nut. And underneath it, there's a hex nut that you can use to loosen. It comes with the tool. And it is a windage adjustable sight. When you loosen it up, it slides back and forth kind of inside of a captive oval, which is a little bit strange. Now that does work. Now one nuance of it is you're actually loosening the sight up and then moving it back and forth. So it's not a screw drive like a lot of the adjustable ones are, where it's very positive. So you kind of got to pay attention. Once you loosen it up, it may move out. So it's hard to make little nuancey adjustments to it. And to adjust it, you do have to take the slide off because that thing's on the bottom of it. As you'll see here, there's a loaded chamber indicator. And it is available with ambidextrous thumb safeties. We chose the version without it. And you can see here a little kind of a depression where that thumb safety would go, just a slight discoloration, and that's where the notch would be in the frame to accommodate the thumb safety. You do of course give up the replaceable back straps because the grip safety takes up the majority of that area. And it does have a fairly nice texturing. It's kind of like a sandpaper, but it's not abrasive, it's not rough. But the one thing we found about it is when you grip it, it's comfortable to hold, but the shape of it just doesn't really lock it firmly into your hand. No matter how hard you squeeze it, it moves easily in your hand. Unlike some other guns where once you clamp your hand down on it, they stay right put. So we did find this one a bit of a challenge to shoot well. Physically, I think it's as accurate as any other gun. I think it's capable of being fired accurately. And when we really focused on it and kind of took our time with it, we could pull tight groups with it. It's just not easy to do. So it's going to be one of these guns that if you choose this gun, you're going to need to spend some time with it on the range, perfect your grip, and focus in on how you're going to use the gun. A couple other features it has. It does have a Picatinny rail, and it does have some minute serrations at the front for the press check. Now, a lot of guns, when they're that low profile, they're not very useful. This one they are, because it's just so easy to rack the slide that minimal amount of serrations is enough to get a hold of it. So if you want to do a press check with this, it's real easy to do. I've talked a couple of times about how easy the slide is to rack, and I've even demonstrated it, but I'll kind of do a further demonstration. If I grab a hold of the gun by the slide, I can rack it with just a fingertip. There's no other gun on the market that you can be able to do that with. Now, of course, if you've got weaker hands and you're buying this gun because you're having a hard time racking, you're not going to try to pull this little stunt. But it just gives you an idea of just how easy the slide is to rack. Even just using my finger, kind of not even touching the side. I'm trying to make sure my finger doesn't touch the side. I can pull it back with just a finger gripping across the top of the slide. So if you've got weak hands and you've been looking for a gun that you can actually carry, and that in an encounter you know that you could reliably cycle it if there was a malfunction, you might have found it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take it apart, show you the internals, show you a few of the things that, compromises you're making, and we'll go from there. Taking it apart is actually as easy as a lot of other things. You lock it back, you flip this little lever, you flip it down. And it's actually fairly easy to flip down. My hands are oily from having handled the gun, but it's actually fairly easy to flip down. And then you release it. Now here's the part where it can be a little bit difficult. It kind of hangs up at different points. And one thing I found is there's a significant amount of play in the slide once it's off the rear guides. So if you kind of pull up on it, it'll have a tendency to snag. So just kind of pull it smooth and straight, and it will come right apart. That's not a big deal, it's just that you might feel like it's hung up. And you'll notice I didn't pull the trigger, because you don't need to. Now the recoil spring is a captive guide rod, captive recoil spring, but it's a little weird. I don't know if you can see it, but see that diamond shape? It's kind of like a flattened oval on the one end, and then if I flip it over, it's got smooth flats on the other. This is a spring that has to be oriented correctly, and I think it's part of trying to make it a little bit thinner. So if you don't have it oriented correctly, you won't be able to get it back in. But the good news is you won't be able to get it to go together enough to even put the gun together if you have it wrong. So you're not going to get the gun in a locked state. Pull out the barrel. Barrel's kind of a little bit different than you're used to. It's got a few extra hooks and protrusions, but it is your standard, standard gun, standard firing sequence. It's a well-machined barrel. The finish does wear quickly. We haven't got a huge amount of rounds through the gun, but you can't feel it. There's no damage to the barrel. This is similar to the Gen 5 Glocks, where you get a wear pattern right away that just doesn't go anywhere from there. It does have a nice polished feed ramp, but the one thing we did find about this feed ramp is it gets dirty easily, and you tend to get residue kind of cakes into there. So I think at the microscopic level it's a little bit rough, and you can actually kind of see it there. So it's kind of machine polished, but it's not mirror polished, even though it kind of looks like it. So it's a little bit difficult to keep it clean. I think over time, if you ran a significant number of rounds through it, it would eventually collect enough stuff to potentially cause issues. But with the amount of ammo we put through it, we had no trouble whatsoever. I more noticed it when I went to clean it. And then if I put my light in the barrel, you can see it's conventional rifling. It's well machined. It's a well done barrel. The only thing that that all I found was the feed ramp tending to get a little bit dirty, and of course it does have a witness hole in addition to the loaded chamber indicator. If I go to the frames really doesn't look a whole lot different than any other. So you have fairly long slide guides at the front, shorter ones at the back. Here's the mechanism for the grip safety, and of course the ejector. So there's not a whole lot going on here in the frame. And then the slide. You can see the slide's well machined, it's smooth. One thing and there's your drop safety right there. One thing I did not mention is it's a hammer gun that behaves like a striker gun. It's smooth and it operates like a striker gun, but internally this is an internal hammer that hits the firing pin there. But with the drop safety, various drop safety mechanism, this is a drop safe gun. And here's that hex screw that I was talking about. Once you loosen this up, you can slide the sight back and forth inside of that oval. It's kind of a unique design. It doesn't give you that fine control over adjustment, but once you get it right and torque it down, stays put, so I don't see any issues with that. Putting it back together is actually relatively easy. You take the barrel, drop it back in. Now the guide rod, you do have to make sure it's turned the right way, and if you go to put it in and you got it the wrong way, you'll see it won't go in, but then when you turn it, it'll kind of like click. Once that end is correct, you don't have to worry about the other end. You just drop it in place. Now when you go to put it back on the frame, it does go on fairly easily, but what you'll find is if you grab the grip, it will bring that grip safety component up and it'll hit. The other thing that'll hit is if you get it pushed down, you'll see that it wants to hit the ejector. So you kind of have to get it right. Grab it, where you're not pushing on the grip safety and kind of wiggle it around. Not a big deal. Once you know how to do it, lock it back, flip the lever up, and you're back in business. So it is easy to maintain, it's just got a quirk or two, but unlike some of these other guns with easy to rack slides, and we've had a few, the PK380, the CCP, it doesn't have any weird tools that you have to use or any other strange processes to get it to come apart. But there's a nuance or two that you have to deal with. So let's talk about the size of this gun and some of the nature of this gun versus some others. Let's start with the obvious size comparison, comparing the Shield EZ to the Shield 9mm, because it is in the Shield family, and I just happen to have one right here. So if you take the Shield 9mm, put it up against the Shield EZ, you'll see it's shorter in each dimension. So the 9mm Shield is a smaller gun. So if you're looking for the absolute smallest, which is often what drives you to 380, the EZ goes in the wrong direction. The other thing you'll notice is the regular Shield has the split trigger. You can see right there, and that kind of folds as you pull it, and that's part of the drop safety mechanism to make sure the trigger can't pull itself. The EZ lacks that, but that's not a problem. That's taken care of by the drop safety. So the function that split trigger would have performed is covered by the grip safety. So you do have a drop safe weapon. You're not going to have a situation like what went on with the P320 where the trigger was pulling itself. So we'll set this aside. And I've mentioned several times when you're going 380, you're wanting to go small. You'd normally be going after something like this. This is a the CW380, same basic size as the P380, and this is about as small as you can get in a 380. It's a very, very thin, very lightweight gun, and very difficult to rack the slide, especially when you get towards the end. I've got a pretty good grip on both the slide and the gun to do this. So, yes, it's much smaller, but there's a trade-off you're taking for that, in that this is going to be very difficult to rack. If you don't have strong hands, you're going to have a hard time getting this thing back in the game. The other one that's very popular in that territory is something like a Glock 42. It's kind of become one of the 380s for pocket carry. Now this one's got aftermarket sights on it. It normally comes with the standard Glock sights. But even that, which is one of the larger of the small 380s, is significantly smaller. Now the Glock is actually a fairly easy to rack slide. So even if you have weaker hands, it's fairly easy to rack, but still not as easy as this one. And then, you might say, well, if it's going to be that big, couldn't I just carry a full-size 9mm? And you'll see that I've got a XDM 3.8 compact. It's almost the exact same size, with one key difference I'll show you in a second. But dimensionally, it's almost exactly the same size, and I could have 9mm in this footprint. Where it's key dimension, it's different. It's a double stack, so it's significantly fatter. This wouldn't make either of these would probably work equally well as a pocket gun at the outside edge of the pocket gun. From a inside the waistband carry, the EZ is going to be a little bit thinner, so it's going to be easier to hide. But even this one, with its nice serrations, it does take some noticeable effort to cycle the slide. It's not difficult, it's not as stiff as the car, but it's still not easy. So you're going to make some trade-offs, and that's a given, but you do actually get a very nice gun that is very, very serviceable. And it actually has a nice trigger, and I kind of talked about the trigger a little bit at the beginning. Let's go into a little more detail on the trigger. So we'll cycle it. It's got a decent amount of take-up, but it's not bad. It's very light, and it's very smooth. And then you're on the wall, and it's a very, very short, crisp wall, and you'll see there's an over-travel stop. It's built into the bottom of the frame, so that it breaks, and it stops, and it sits there and waits for me to do something next. when I cycle it, the reset is actually decent. It's not all the way out, that would be all the way out. It's not a super short reset like many others, but it's a surprisingly nice reset in a gun in this category. And then when you're done with the reset, you could hear it, but you can't really feel it. You're right on the wall, and then a break. And then of course if you let it all the way out, it just starts the cycle all over again. So it's a surprisingly nice trigger. They've really done a very good job with the triggers on the M2.0 series. And it's a nice short trigger, unlike a lot of the guns in this category. Like the car has a fairly long trigger even though it's light and smooth. So you are getting a very nice trigger to work with. So in looking at this reset, by the way, it kind of felt like it was a little bit longer, but the more I play with it, it's actually a reasonably short reset. It is shorter than many of them, not as short as others. It's not a PPQ reset, but it is actually quite nice. So again, you get a nice trigger, you get an easy to rack slide, you get a comfortable to hold gun, little kind of a drawback in the ability to shoot it well and grip it, but with a combination of the nice sights and the other features and an MSRP of $399, it actually fits well into that market, and I would actually expect this to take over the market for people needing an easier to rack slide compared to all the others. It's smaller, it's lighter, it's just overall going to end up being the gun of choice in that realm, I'm pretty sure. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Patreon, and have a great day. Thank you.